The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. There are people out there all across the country pushing boundaries to grow the game of golf. Like champion speed golfer Lauren Cupp, who plays faster than anyone else. And Will Lowry, whose work in the golf community inspires more kids to get into the game. As a champion partner of the Masters, Bank of America supports everyone determined to find out what's possible in golf and in life. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, copyright 2025, Bank of America Corporation, all rights reserved.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You are now listening to the Dynasty Rewind.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Rewind, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Bauer, the best in the business. Once again, back in business. Joined as always by my faithful co-host, Nate, Professor Christian. Nate, hello and welcome back.
Hello, Mike. I guess not joined as always if I wasn't here last week, but I am usually here. I'm back this week.
Joined as sometimes by my faithful co-host, Nate, Professor Christian. Yeah, well, Nate, you were up there in Canada.
Yeah, up in the Canadian Rockies. I did some skiing while I was up there, did some ice fishing. Did not catch anything, but that's why they call it fishing, not catching.
True.
I learned how to use sonar while I did that, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had a great time, but good to be back and get into the NFL draft scene again, because Mike, we were just talking before the podcast, 3 weeks in one day as of recording away from the NFL draft. And I'm going to be seeing you for that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing some live streams, going to be recording our weekly podcast while we're there. I guess I'll be down there at Nate's house on the outskirts of Baltimore. If you want the address to come hang out, hit me up. I will gladly get that for you. Nate, do you have any rookie class fatigue? I saw some people on X talking about that. You have any of that, or?
No, not really. Not too much with this class. I mean, there was maybe a little bit of less hype around some of these positions than some other draft classes. Like after last year's quarterback class, this year's quarterback class just isn't as exciting. So I think maybe without that overanalyzation of that hype, I don't think the rookie fatigue is as bad this year.
Yeah, I feel like
I have to be excited about the running backs. I can't be fatigued about these running backs because it's exciting for all of us.
Of course, I feel like when there's not that big quarterback prospect, people don't get as excited about a class maybe sometimes. But, there's some good positions in this class still, and we're going to get into it. So today we're doing a 1 quarterback rookie mock draft. I saw some people asking about that. Obviously wanted to wait until Nate got back from Canada to do that. So we're doing 2 rounds. We're doing 12 picks per round. So it's a 12-team league. Like I said, 1 quarterback. I didn't put a tight end premium on this one. I will say this. I did something a little bit different. Nate, I'm sure you saw that when I prepped this mock for us to do. I didn't assign either of us the 101 because we knew we could assume in most cases, probably 99% of the leagues out there, it's going to be Ashton Genty at the 101, running back from Boise State. Do you see, especially in a 1 quarterback league, anybody else going ahead of Ashton Genty?
I can see it. I think majority of the time it's going to be Ashton Genty. I think there might be some Marion Hampton truthers out there, depending on the landing spot. Like if the landing spot is, that much better, which I can't imagine a landing spot that really puts him over Genty, who, we're looking at basically the Bears and the Raiders right now with Ashton Genty. So we'll see what happens. I think he's going to be the 101 90% of the time. And Mike, I actually thought that you were just giving him to me,
No,
without
sir.
having me select him. I just thought
I'm
you were
making
like,
you work.
you can have Nate. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. But
Nope.
I guess I don't get him. No one gets him.
No. I made us work for this one, Nate. There's no easy layups here. There's none of that. Sorry. But yeah, Ashton Genty, he's the guy. If he goes to the Bears, say goodbye to DeAndre Swift. I mean, I would assume at that point he would get moved. Maybe during the draft, maybe a little bit after, but that'd still be a good 1-2 punch. And Roshan Johnson's still there as well. And if he goes to the Raider, instant starter. Well, obviously, there's nobody.
Obviously, but Zamir White's not staying in his way. You're saying
no? Zamir White, he stands in his own way. That's all he does. So the 101, Ashton Genty, and then I went ahead. I took the 102 because I wanted to take a running back, and I took Omarion Hampton, running back from North Carolina. Nate, I'm the Omarion Hampton truther. That does not mean that I would be taking him over Ashton Genty if I had the 101. This is a guy, he could do everything. He's physical, great vision between the tackles. It's a good ball catcher as well. Got some good wiggle on him and pretty good top end speed for a guy his size as well. I also love his vision. So I'm going with Omarion Hampton with the 102. 2 running backs off the board. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I mean, Omarion Hampton, you can't go wrong there with the 102. I know he is your RB2, Mike.
Yep.
But at the third pick here, I'm picking up my RB2, which is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. That's who I think consensus does have Hampton as the RB2. And I do like him. He's my RB3. But I really like Henderson. I think he also has a chance to possibly go in the first round, more likely in the second round. And he could find himself a pretty nice landing spot. Saw Field Yates just did his mock draft, and I believe he had the Cowboys picking up Trey Henderson in the second round. Would be a great landing spot for him. Henderson has great explosiveness, great upside in both the rushing game and the receiving game. I really like what he brings to the table out of the backfield in that multifaceted kind of threat, and I think that really fits really well for fantasy football. Now, he might not get as many touches per game as a guy like Hampton, who's a bit more stout, but, high efficiency touches like those receiving backs, he's going to get that. He's also going to be able to handle enough. He ran for 1,016 yards last year as a true freshman in the Big Ten. He ran for 1,248 yards and 15 touchdowns. So this is a guy who can get it done on the ground, through the air. I'm excited to pick him up here at the 103. I think in a 1 quarterback league, I'm very happy to have any of these top 3 running backs.
And NFL Mock Draft Database does have him going in the second round. So good call on that one. Nate, I actually wanted to bring up and see where Omarion Hampton is projected to go right now. And again, NFL Mock Draft Database, not the be-all, end-all. Omarion Hampton right now projected to be a first-round pick.
Yep. And the latest mock draft I looked at, Field Yates, he released one this morning. He had Hampton going to the Broncos, which I've seen multiple times.
Be a good spot for him. I just saw on Mock Draft Database here, Travion Henderson going to the Broncos. That seems to be a juicy landing spot. I don't like the Cowboys. They have Javonte Williams. They have Miles Sanders. They're all in. They're good to go. So I don't see that happening. But hey, you never know. Strange things have happened. So let's move along to the 104. I went ahead and took my new wide receiver 1, and that is Luther Burden, wide receiver. Now, I said previously, what I liked more about Ted McMillan over Luther Burden is I feel Luther Burden need to be schemed open, but the more I watch on him, the more I just kind of dive into him a little bit. We know he could play inside, which he predominantly did his last year, but let's not forget earlier in his career at Missouri, he did play outside it well. So he can play inside, outside. He's physical enough, and he is just explosive after the catch. And what better place to have yourself be schemed open than the NFL? There's really no better place. He goes to a good spot with a good coordinator. They're going to get him open. They're going to get the ball in his hands. I'm going Luther Burden at the 104, and I don't feel bad about it.
Mike, I love to hear that. I was very surprised to see you pick him up over Tet. I remember, 2 months ago when we did our wide receiver rankings, you had Tet as your 1. I had Luther Burden as my 1. I Told you to go back and watch the 2023 film. Sounds like you probably did, because, the 2024 film, I get it. The Missouri offense was not very good, despite bringing back many of their starters on offense, including their quarterback and Burden, of course. But that 2023 film, that's what I love to see out of Luther Burden. I think that the kind of anti-hype on Luther Burden right now is a bit much. Seeing him slide out of the first round in some mock drafts, people, having him outside the top 3, sometimes even maybe at wide receiver 5 or 6 in some of these occasions. NFL's talking down on him. We're hearing about off the field issues. Like we've never had a successful wide receiver in the NFL with off the field issues before.
Yeah.
So they're not known for that. They're known for being, golden boys, church choir boys. So
yeah,
I'm not worried about it. I think it's a bunch of smoke. Luther Burden is an extremely explosive player, game changer kind of guy. And he's been that everywhere he's been. So I think it's going to continue in the NFL. Don't buy this poo-pooing on Luther Burden. He's great.
Currently a projected second-round pick.
That's ridiculous.
Draft database.
I don't think that's going to happen, Mike, to be honest. You're going to tell me that 32 teams are going to look at Luther Burden's skill set and say, nah, I don't want that guy in the first round.
They'd have to be stacked at wide receiver. And
there's too many people that need wide receivers.
Yeah. Hey, you can make room for a guy like Luther Burden in your team. Hey, let's kick it over to the 105.
All right, the 105. You picked up Luther Burden, so I had to go ahead and pick up Ted McMillan. I'm certainly not upset about having to make this consolation pick with Tet. This is a guy that's caught over 2,700 receiving yards over the past 2 years. He's been really, really effective for Arizona coming in, at 6'5". This is a big guy, big target, gets down the field, has that X roll and can play it really well. He's one of the better guys at making those plays down the field. And he's also surprisingly better than you expect after the catch. He's not overly elusive, not, anything that's going to really pop off the film, but he still happens to get those extra yards after the catch, make it happen, shrug off a tackle here and there. And I would say he's above average after the catch, not incredible or anything, but better than you expect for someone his size and his play style. So this is a guy that we've been looking forward to for a couple of years now, Ted McMillan. He had 702 yards his freshman season with Arizona and 8 touchdowns. So this is a guy that's been productive over his 3 years. Like I said, we've been watching him for a while, excited about him coming out. He's coming out now. I don't really have him ranked over the top 3 guys last year, but I still think he is very good on his own. Can be a low-level wide receiver 1 at the next level, or a really, really high-level wide receiver 2.
Yeah, currently a projected first-round pick on NFL Mock Draft database here. So let's kick it over to the 106. I'm going with your running back 2's backfield mate, and that is Quinshon Judkins, running back from Ohio State. Not as a dynamic of a playmaker as TreVeyon Henderson. I don't think he's as good in space, but definitely more physical. I think he's a little bit more durable than TreVeyon Henderson. And look, TreVeyon Henderson, where he really excels is as a pass catcher, but Quinshon Judkins is no slouch there either. Great vision, another really physical guy like Omarion Hampton, kind of the running back that I like to see if I was building an NFL roster. Omarion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, these are running backs that I would personally be going for, a guy that could just really grind a defense down. I don't know, you get to a point where with the way running backs are, maybe these guys don't ever get the backfield all to themselves, but we've seen it work in committees before. So Quinshon Judkins for me at the 106. Nate, do you have anything to add about him before we move on to your pick at the 107?
No, not too much to add on Judkins. Like him, he's been productive his entire career as well. I think, we had some questions about his explosiveness. He ended up running pretty well at the combine, so I think he answered some of those questions. So I'm more than happy with picking it up here. I think there's also been some anti-hype. I don't know I need a better word than anti-hype. I don't know, Mike, if you got one, but
come on, I don't. He's currently a projected second-round draft pick.
Yeah, I like that. I like an early day 2 pick with Quinshon.
All right, Nate, you kind of shocked me with your 107 pick. So why don't you tell us who it is?
All right, I'm really excited about this player. The hype has kind of grown both on NFL draft Twitter and things like that, as well as just kind of keeping up with the mock drafts and watching some more film myself. I'm getting more and more excited about Matthew Golden. So I picked up Matthew Golden here at the 107. Coming up as my wide receiver 3. He's the wide receiver 3 off the board here in this mock draft. And coming in at 5'11", 191 pounds, I'm not worried about the size at all. That's a good average size in the NFL. So he checks a lot of those boxes. But when you look at the fact that he ran a 4.29, that is game-changing speed. At a 1.49 10-yard split, anything under 1.5 is honestly crazy. I know we're talking like 0.01 of a second, but still very, very impressive for this guy to be this fast and also have the route running ability that he has, the body control along the sideline, and the knack for making big plays. He did it while he was at Houston. He did it at Texas at the end of the year in some really big matchups, both in the SEC as well as in the college playoffs. So Matthew Golden, someone who's really grown on me. Sounds like there's a lot of hype in the NFL media about him. Sounds like some teams might even have him as their wide receiver 1, Mike. So, when I see something that looks exciting and the NFL is telling me that they like it as well, I'm paying attention. Matthew Golden for me, 107 here. And I think you're going to get a really good player who has a lot of upside in this draft. He might not have the physical upside from a frame way, that Luther Burden with his stocky build or Ted McMillan with his height. But Matthew Golden athletically is very, very impressive. And I think, could be a really good wide receiver at the next level. Kind of in like a really good wide receiver too. I don't want to comp him Devonta Smith, but I think fantasy wise, we could see him maybe do something like that.
Yeah, I like the pick. I don't know. I thought you'd be going elsewhere, but that's okay. He is currently a projected first-round pick, and consensus is 22nd to the Chargers, which would be a nice spot for him, even though they did just sign Mike Williams. But I'd love to see him paired up with Quentin Johnston and Lab McConkey. And, of course, Jalen Reagor. Can't forget about him as well. So, hey, it wouldn't really be a mock draft without me taking the first tight end off the board. I'm taking my tight end 1 at the 108, and that's Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. For whatever reason, comments seem to be split on how old he is. Some people say 22, some people say 25. Doesn't matter. He's fantastic. He's a phenomenal football player, extremely athletic. He's extremely versatile. And, man, did he pile up some yards at Penn State. Now, that being said, I don't think his production would have been as good had Penn State had some sort of credible wide receiver room. Just couldn't seem to put it together there, but that's neither here nor there. Tyler Warren, he's a guy where if given a good landing spot, I think he could step in. Maybe not be as good as Brock Bowers, but I think he could be a good tight end 2 on your roster for you right off the rip. So Tyler Warren going at the 108 for me, and I did not bring up where he is projected to go yet on NFL Mock Draft Database. Let's see. Where do you think? You think he's a first-round pick here?
Yeah, he's a top 15 pick.
They're projecting him first round, 10th consensus is 10th overall to the Bears. Goodbye, Cole Kmet. That's the case.
I don't know about going to the Bears, but
that's what it says.
To the Broncos, to the Colts. One time I saw him go to the Cowboys, so Jake Ferguson's job. Who knows about that? But Tyler Warren. There's not many more tight ends that are more versatile than him. He had over 200 yards of rushing just this past year, so very impressive.
Pretty crazy. Hey, let's kick it over to the 109.
All right, the 109. I know I said Matthew Golden's my wide receiver 3, but this guy is a very close tie for the wide receiver 3 position. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Lance Zierlein, the lead writer for the NFL Draft Combine on NFL.com, compared him to JSN, former teammate JSN. And I like that as well. This is a guy that is definitely going to be playing at the slot the next level. I do think he offers some versatility to be able to play outside as well as that flanker position. Comes in at 6'1", 202, so he's not a small guy that needs the slot, but his play style, his route running ability, and his yards after the catch are really strong, and that it really helps him create mismatches in the slot and take advantage of those. So this is a guy that has caught a lot of passes over his time at Ohio State, coming up with 81 last year for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. So this is a guy that is going to be reliable. Quarterbacks are going to love him. He's a pro's pro. Egbuka is a really safe pick, and I think still offers upside, especially in fantasy football. We'll see if he's a first rounder. I definitely think he's a first rounder, probably in that 20 range. We've seen a lot of wide receivers drafted in the past. But I've seen some mock drafts from falling into early second round. But I think with how we're looking at these wide receivers getting paid now, I think someone's going to want that 5th-year option on Egbuka.
Yeah. Projected second-round pick on NFL Mock Draft Database. So you can see it happening. I like Egbuka as well. Nate, this may catch some heat, but you know what? Look, I understand it's a one-quarterback league. Still got to fill that quarterback position. And sometimes when I think they are the best player on the board, I'm going to go ahead and take them. I've taken quarterbacks in the first round of one quarterback league before. Take my quarterback one, forgive me. That is Cam Ward from Incarnate Ward, Washington State, and Miami. He's been around. Look, I think he's going to be better if he sits a year, and I think a lot of these quarterbacks coming in should sit a year. There's obviously exceptions. We've seen guys like Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams come in and play well. But I think we could probably safely say most of the guys in this class, quarterback-wise anyway, should be sitting a year. Cam Ward does a lot of things well. He's really cool in the pocket. He's got a good arm. For the most part, he puts the ball where it needs to be and leads his receivers well. I think he can be a better runner than what he lets himself be, but he does try to always make the play with his arm first, although sometimes he does tend to hang on to the ball too long. But all the flaws that he has, they're definitely coachable. So, Cam Ward for me at the 110, you may not like it, but I'm going to just go ahead and plant my flag on my quarterback one of this draft. And apparently he's not on NFLmockdraftdatabase.com.
He's like the consensus 101. He's consensus first round pick so far.
It's Cameron Ward. Forgive me.
Cameron Ward. Come on, Mike. You should know better. You always have the full names.
My bad. I always heard him called as Cam. But yeah, right now he's projected first round, projected to the Titans. Goodbye.
Yeah.
What the hell's the kid's name down there in Tennessee?
Will Levis.
Will Levis. I should know that. He was a Penn Stater. So that'd be interesting. Him going first overall. What do you do there if you're the Titans? You just throw him out there day one?
Yeah.
You let Will Levis take some beatings first. Mason Rudolph's not there. He looks like he might be the starter in Pittsburgh. So the let's get Mike Tomlin fired season up there in Pittsburgh. So
I don't know what they're doing in Pittsburgh.
They don't know what they're doing.
Jackson Dart season, I guess.
Maybe. I guess we'll find out in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Gonna be interesting.
We will know.
All right, I took Cam Ward at the 110. Nate, the 111 is all you. I actually predicted this one here, to be honest with you. I know it would be a little bit later if it was a Superflex draft.
Yep.
Go ahead. Tell us who you got.
Yeah, I don't know how much later in the Superflex draft. I do know that if you're not drafting with me, you'll probably find this guy a little bit later in your draft than you're going to find it in your draft with me. But I've had to pick up Devin Neal here at the 111. I couldn't let him get into the second round. I couldn't let Mike take him before I got a chance. I know I'm picking him up over some other running backs that many people have ranked over Devin Neal, but I love Devin Neal. I was talking in the Discord with some of our Patreons in there about how much I love him just because he's one of the most productive running backs in this draft class. A guy that, for the last 3 seasons has had over 1,000 yards, over 1,200 the last 2 seasons. His freshman season had 700 yards. This is a guy that has 32 touchdowns over the last 2 years to go along with 49 receptions and almost 500 yards on through the air. So this is a guy that's been extremely productive for a Kansas team that has relied upon him for their offense. And he continues to show off what he can do on the film, continue to show off that production. Goes to the NFL Combine. He runs a 4.58. People are worried about that. There's a lot of really good running backs who have run 4.58s or worse. I've seen some of those 40 times for Le'Veon Bell. Some of these other guys, 4.6s is what they're running, and they looked just fine when they got to the NFL. He's still explosive with a 37.5-inch vertical jump, so it's not that he's not fast. I don't think his long speed necessarily is the best long speed. I don't think he's necessarily the quickest guy, but he has great vision, great patience, really understands the flow of the game, really trusts his blockers. And I think he's a guy that's going to go into the NFL, hopefully be a day 2 pick. I think he's a 3rd rounder in my opinion. But if he goes to a team where he's going to get touches, doesn't need to be the starter necessarily, can be one of the guys in the committee. I think this is a guy that can have a lot of production in the NFL, be very effective, be very efficient, and could get a lot of fans once you see him on the field. So this is a guy I think you got to look past the measurables, look past the numbers, look at the statistics though, and look at that film, and you see that Devin Neal is honestly one of the better running backs in this draft class, which is loaded. I have Devin Neal with my top 5, and I'm not ashamed at all for that. I have him over your next pick, Mike. If you want to say anything about Devin Neal, otherwise you can talk about your next pick.
I want to say that he is a projected 5th round draft.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. It does have the Chiefs on here twice as a landing spot for him, and I think that would be a really good spot for him. And if he goes to the Chiefs, even if it's in the mid rounds, he's definitely going to get a bump. Teams like that, offensive player goes, you always get a bump. Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Ravens, teams like that, they always seem to get a bump when an offensive player goes there, unless it's a wide receiver going to the Ravens. People just love to hate.
Yeah, I don't think the Ravens necessarily get that bump, but
no. Let's close out the first round with my last pick here, and that is Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa. Is he the most special or gifted player that you're going to see in this draft? No. Is he productive and extremely physical? Absolutely. Hey, yet again, I'm showing the type of running back I like and I would build a team around. Look, I love Caleb Johnson. I would love to see him get his pad level a little bit lower. Again, that is something that is completely coachable at the next level. Physical, great vision, and you know what? For a team that doesn't score a lot of points, he gets a pretty good amount of touchdowns, and he catches the ball really well too out of the backfield. Iowa, they don't throw to the running back a ton, but when he does it, he looks really smooth and he looks pretty explosive after the catch too. So for me, Caleb Johnson at the 112 kind of felt like a no-brainer. And look, to be honest with you, I would take Caleb Johnson over Devin Neal. Let's see where he's projected to go.
You and a lot of people, Mike. That's okay.
Do you have a prediction here for
third round? But I think people are high on him. Probably second round.
Second round, yeah. He's a projected second round pick right now.
I have Caleb as a third round pick. I'm not hating on Caleb. I don't think he's a day 3 pick or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I love me some Devin Neal. I think Caleb Johnson's a little bit more of a straight line runner, which depending on the scheme, you put him in a gap scheme, you let him just run head down, strong guy. He's pretty fast as well, big guy, can work really well. But without knowing where he's going to end up, I like Devin Neal a bit more versatile, bit better looking film, maybe in my opinion. But
okay, yeah, hey. To each their own, Nate. So let's recap this first round here. The 101, we had Ashton Genty. After that, we had Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Luther Burden, Tet McMillan, Quinshon Judkins, Matthew Golden, Tyler Warren, Emeka Egbuka, Cam Ward, Devin Neal, and Caleb Johnson. We had been talking about this not being a very good wide receiver class, and yet we had a bunch going. So it just shows, look, and again, when I went Luther Burden above Tet McMillan, don't get take lock on these players. Things are going to change. These guys, they work out, they do their pro days, they go through the combine. You hear the buzz. So don't get take lock. Don't be afraid to change your opinion on a player.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's Best Warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos Remix or Light and Fit Remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 6 remix varieties, 3 Epic Complete Protein Oikos Remix options, or 3 craveable Light and Fit Remix options. See RemixYogurt.com.
I get so many headaches every month.
It could be chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those who have 14 or fewer headache days a month. Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor. Visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
Nate, are you ready to kick off the second round?
I sure am.
What do you got for me at the 201?
All right. One name might have been missing from the first round, depending on your thoughts on this player. But I definitely wanted to make sure I picked him up here in the second round. We definitely did not forget about him. Travis Hunter, wide receiver / quarterback out of Colorado. Now, I don't quarterback. He's pretty versatile. Who knows? He probably plays with everything.
He is.
I don't know what Travis Hunter looks like snap-wise at the next level. I have no idea, and I've tried to do my best to keep up with it. And I've heard both ways. I've heard some people say, yeah, this guy should be a full-time wide receiver. Look at how good he is. Some other people say he should be a full-time quarterback with 15 snaps at the wide receiver position. Seems like there's a bit of a lean that way, but not necessarily from Travis Hunter himself, just from kind of the NFL media. So I don't know what's going to happen. We won't even know what happens after the draft, probably. I mean, maybe we'll kind of have an idea based on the landing spot, but I mean, it is most likely to go to the Browns or the Jaguars right now. So it could be either or. But Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, if he was a full-time wide receiver, Mike, he would be my wide receiver 1 in this class.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think he's that good. I think he's that good of an athlete. I think he's that good with the ball in the air. I think he's that good at the catch point. I really like Travis Hunter, but not knowing the fact that he's going to be a full-time wide receiver, it does drop him down the board for me. And I do think that there's going to be a lean to him being a quarterback first with some wide receiver snaps. I think it's a little bit easier to do that than have him be a wide receiver with some quarterback snaps. Because, you're not going to necessarily change your defense, every couple of plays. That's not really good for the defense. But you can throw a couple, Travis Hunter plays in there and things like that. So that being said, if Travis Hunter's looking at 15 snaps, 20 snaps a game, he can still be fancy productive because when he's going to go in there, he's probably going to have a pretty high target rate, I would imagine. So I can still see Travis Hunter being productive for our fantasy teams, but on a week in, week out basis, I'm not sure if we're actually going to get that if he is playing cornerback. So that does drop him out of the first round for me. I do think he's a really, really good wide receiver, though. So I'm not going to let him drop too much farther. So as we learn more, our valuation on Travis Hunter will change, but I do really think that this guy is one of the better wide receivers in this draft class, if not the best. 96 receptions last year, 1,258 yards, 15 touchdowns, top 5 in every category, won the Blitnikoff Award. Mike, I know that should have gone to Nick Nash in your opinion. I'm not going to share my opinion. I'm not really sure who it should have gone to. I don't know if it should have gone to Travis Hunter, but still, either way, even if it should have gone to him, he was right up there anyway. So this is a guy that's a really good wide receiver and I think deserves a spot here at the top of the second round.
Currently projected to be a first-round pick. We all knew that. And the consensus, just so you know, I'm not giving consensuses for guys outside of the first round because NFL Mock Draft Database does not do that. It's first round only. Consensus is third overall to the Giants. To the Giants. So his career over before it started. R.I.P. Travis Hunter. Nate, I'm going to go 202. Sticking to my guns. Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU. I love this guy. Nephew or whatever of Jason Taylor, former NFL defensive end. And look, if you're too young and you've never watched Jason Taylor play, go on YouTube after this video and go ahead and check him out. He was a nasty player. Do you remember watching him play, Nate?
I do. I do. He was really good.
Now, Mason doesn't quite play as nasty as Jason does, but he will impose his will. Very good in traffic. And one thing I've noticed a lot about this tight end class in particular, from everything I've watched so far, all the guys that I've watched, they're all very good on tight end screens. And I think tight end screens should be a thing. As an Eagles fan, I saw Dallas Goedert run a lot of tight end screens. It's effective. You get some blocking for these guys. They're big, they're physical, they're athletic. They can make things happen with the ball in their hands. Mason Taylor is one of those guys. I am a big Mason Taylor fan. I'm not afraid to admit it. So he was my pick there at the 202. Nate, while I'm bringing him up on NFL Mock Draft Database, of course, an ad pops up for a camera, which I now want to buy. A projected second round pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I got him at tight end 3. I'm going to be talking about my tight end 2 in just a minute. But I did look it up. Mason Taylor is actually Jason Taylor's son, nephew of who was this? Zach Thomas.
My apologies. So he is.
So great bloodlines either way.
Yeah. He's doing okay.
And if maybe what Jason Taylor is most known for is being runner-up in Dancing with the Stars season 6.
My wife would have known that. She always tells me, she's like, "Oh, look, there's an NFL player. Who is it?" I'm like, "I don't know. I only see these guys with pads on. I don't know every player." And then it'll be like, obviously, Jason Taylor. Then it'll be like some obscure guy who took one snap in 2005, and you're like, yeah, I don't know who it is.
Yeah, it'll be like got to bounce off the practice squad for like 2 years, and like you knew his name at one point, but
yeah, like, oh, I thought you knew every NFL player ever. I'm like, that's not how it works. So, Nate, you want to kick it over to the 203?
I do. This is where I'm picking up my tight end too in this class, and that's Colson Loveland out of Michigan. Colson Loveland, he's been projected to the Chargers. We love that Michigan man connection there with him and Jim Harbaugh. I think that'd be a great spot for him, but I've also seen him projected a couple other places. But either way, he is looking like a first rounder. I have said it before, while Tyler Warren is extremely versatile and, really opens up a lot of options for an offense, I do think Colson Loveland is the best receiving tight end in this class, just as a pure receiver.
You take that back.
I will not take that back, Mike. I think he's a better route runner. I think he's just more smooth athletically. Tyler Warren is more physical for sure. I think that's what really sets him apart. But Colson Loveland, I think, is going to be a really good big slot for some teams, someone that's going to really be able to be a focus of a passing game, can be a top 2 target on a offense. And that's what we always strive for with tight ends, that we want to grab in fantasy football, is we want to grab guys that are top 2 targets. That's where you get that volume. That's where you get those opportunities for touchdowns, things like that. That's the kind of guys that we're going after in fantasy football. And Colson Loveland, I think, fits the bill for that really, really well. I love what he's done at Michigan. Last year was not so great, but that's because that offense was anemic. 56 receptions, 582 yards, still pretty good considering what they were working with their quarterback. But in 2023 with J.J. McCarthy, we saw him go off for 649 yards. So, we've seen what this guy can do. I think he's going to be a good pick at the next level, first rounder, and someone that I'm pretty happy to pick up at this point. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised to see him at the end of the first round, but I like him really here at the 203.
Well, you will not see him at the end of the first round in the NFL draft. He's a projected first rounder. Consensus is 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. But Nate, I like my tight ends a little more versatile. Colson Loveland only has 1 career carry for -2 yards. Tyler Warren, 30 carries for 225 yards and 6 touchdowns in his career. So just throw it out there for you. That's why I am doing that. So let's go to the 204. And I feel like I'm a little bit higher on this guy than you. I've talked about him before. That is Trey Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Now you're going to see some things on the tape that I think will probably turn some people off. And I don't think it's his fault. Hear me out. The Ole Miss system played him too close to the line. And Ole Miss is a system that works really well for Ole Miss, but we've seen their quarterbacks struggle a little bit to adjust to the NFL. I think Jackson Dart is a guy who's going to have some growing pains, mostly because they never take snaps under center. And that's not good in the NFL. You got to know how to do that. But that being said, that's not a Trey Harris issue. I think they played him too close to the line. That's just not his game. Multiple times in a game, they're running these little bubble screens, or they just got him right up against the line. That's not him. Put him on slants in the middle of the field, have him running down the field. I'm not saying he's like DK Metcalf, but obviously he played in the same system DK Metcalf did at the same school, doing a little helmet scouting there. There you go. He is definitely more versatile as far as what he could do route tree wise than I think what Ole Miss was having him do. He's a big body. He could be outside. He's extremely physical, both, going for the ball and after he catches the ball. I like Trey Harris a lot. And Nate, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm higher on him than you are.
You are. And actually, I was looking at Field Yates's mock draft this morning. Trey Harris did not make the first 2 rounds.
Well, he is a projected second-round pick on NFLMockDraftDatabase.com. Some landing spots here. Commanders, the Broncos, the Bills, Chargers, Texans. Yeah, all interesting spots for him.
Yeah.
So, hate away, Nate. I love Trey Harris.
All right, we'll see. We'll all know in 6, 7, 8 months. Who knows? We'll get a good glimpse at least.
We'll know in 3 weeks exactly how the NFL feels about Trey Harris. Our podcast after that will be a mock draft, and obviously we will adjust accordingly. So Nate, let's go over to the 205.
All right, I have this guy listed as Cam Scatterbo, but maybe I should say Cameron Scatterbo. Running back out of Arizona State, ran for 711 yards this past year with 21 touchdowns. Also caught 45 balls for 605 yards and 3 touchdowns. So quite the versatile player. Can do it through the air, can do it through the ground. I believe players with 1,500 plus rushing yards and 500 plus receiving yards. It's a pretty limited group, and that includes CMC. So Cam Scatterbo's got some good company there with his production this past year at Arizona State. Really like what he did against Texas in the playoffs. Really put that team on his back. They lost very close game late. And Scatterbo, ran for 143 yards in that game. Also caught 8 catches for 99 yards. So really was a true playmaker for almost 250 total yards against Texas, which we know has a really good defense. So I love seeing what he could do against those top teams. We saw it. Now, athletically, there's going to be some questions. He didn't run at the NFL draft combine because he was injured. He did run his pro day. I believe it was like a 4.65, somewhere around there. It was a 4.6, which going back to the Devin Neal conversation, I'm not too worried about the 4.6 with his physicality and his vision and his versatility, to be quite honest. He has a lot of different tools in his bag, so the athleticism, does not need to be elite for him to be able to still be productive. And just because he's not super quick does not mean he's not athletic. He had 39.5-inch vertical, so he's still explosive. This is a guy that I still think has enough athleticism to make it in the NFL. Obviously, I didn't have him in the first round pick. So, there's been some people that have him in their top 5. I don't have him there, but I have him pretty close to it, to be honest. And I love what he brings with his physicality. We don't like to say it very often, but this guy definitely has that dog in him. He plays the game with an edge. You should have a little sound drop you do after I do that,
What are you kidding me?
There you
can
go.
have that one.
We can have that one for right now. But Scatterbo, he does play with that edge, and I like to see that, especially with, bringing that physicality, bringing that punishment to defenders. He does that really well. And this is a guy that, picking him at the 205, I think, he's a day 2 pick. Maybe the athleticism scares somebody and he drops into the 4th round, but I'm happy to pick him here at the 205 and see what he can do with some team. If we had him with the Ravens, I'd be pretty happy.
Well, here's a sound drop that would describe Cam Scatterbo to you.
Takes every single inch of it.
There you go.
That he does.
You regret saying that. A projected 3rd round draft pick in this upcoming draft. I feel like that one feels pretty good to me. 3rd round for him?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so let's go to my next pick, which is the 206. I'm going with Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas, who currently is a projected 3rd round pick. NFL Mock Draft Database.com. Some projected spots. The Rams, the Commanders, and the Eagles. I do not see that happening. I think they load up on defense. The Eagles do get a little younger along the lines. That being said, look, some people are kind of all over the place on Isaiah Bond. One thing I like about him, I thought his route running was pretty good. I think he can be more physical. He is 5'11", 180. So I don't know how physical a guy like that can be, but pretty good separator, which is great. Find some gaps in the defensive zone there. Does have a little bit of inconsistent yak, but can line up kind of all over the place too. So fights as hard as he can, not quite hard enough. Gonna need to hit the NFL weight room. But I got Isaiah Bond there at the 206. Nate, you could touch on that. You can go right over to the 207.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Isaiah Bond fan myself. I think great deep threat at the next level. I'm not sure how much after that. We'll see. Mike, we do have one guy that I think some people might have expected to come off the board at this point, especially with you picking Cam Ward at the 110.
Mm-hmm.
But Shedeur Sanders still on the board. I'm going to pick him up here at the 207. It's a 1 quarterback mock, so obviously these guys are falling a bit more than they do in Superflex. But I think by the mid-second, I am more than happy to pick up Shedeur Sanders. I would have looked at him probably in the early second as well. But it's going to kind of come down to where he gets drafted. We've seen everything from him being, a top 3, top 5 draft pick. And we've also seen mock drafts where he slides down into the 20s. I think, a couple of weeks ago, there were some people that were putting him at the early second, which I think is a bit ridiculous. Shedeur Sanders is certainly talented enough to be a first-round pick. And with quarterbacks, you're going to want that fifth-year option. So I don't think there's any chance really he falls into the fifth round. If Kenny Pickett was drafted in the first round, Shedeur Sanders absolutely is going to be picked in the first round.
For sure.
So, if you get a first-round quarterback, I don't know where he goes, if it's to the Steelers, if it's to the Giants, if it's to the Browns. There's a couple different quarterback needy teams out there. But I think Shedeur Sanders, while he's not necessarily going to elevate an offense the way that we've seen, guys like Mahomes, Allen, the top of the class really do. Sanders can be a really good point guard kind of for a team. And I think if he's surrounded by some good weapons, he can be very productive and he can win a lot of games for an NFL team. So it's going to kind of come down to the landing spot on how I really feel about Shedeur Sanders, but I do like him. I did actually have him as my quarterback one when we did our quarterback rankings a while ago. I kind of have him in Ward 1A and 1B off my film score, but I understand the upside that Cam Ward brings and why the NFL likes him a bit more. I totally get it. But I think Shedeur Sanders offers a really, really good floor at the quarterback position.
Yeah. A 207 in a one quarterback. I like that. Currently a first round pick on NFL Mock Draft database. For whatever reason, they don't have a consensus on here for him. But when you're scrolling down, I'm mostly seeing the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to just take the Browns as the consensus. And I think that would be a really good spot for him. You see all these clickbaity articles, Deshaun Watson done in Cleveland. And then you have to go to the first comment to click on it. I'm not doing that. For the record, I'm not getting a virus on my computer for your crappy article. But right now, Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett are the two quarterbacks that are currently rostered. So I think it would be a good spot for him. I don't know if Watson's going to play this year. Probably not, I would assume. Because he re-injured his Achilles, right?
Yeah, he's out again.
Yeah, you can let Kenny Pickett go in and do Kenny Pickett things for whatever. Let Shedeur Sanders sit for a little bit. Definitely going to need some help in the wide receiver department, though. You got Jerry Jeudy, you got David Njoku at tight end, and then a lot of big question marks after that. David Bell still kicking around, by the way. So Shedeur Sanders for you at the 207. I do like that spot for him. I wish he would just let it go a little bit sooner. I think he, like Cam Ward, holds on to the ball too long at times. Again, coachable. Let's go to the 208, and I have DJ Giddens from Kansas State. Yet again, you could see my prototype running back. I don't know why. I thought he was a smaller running back than what he is, but this is a pretty big dude. And I liked his lateral agility for his size. Even though he's more of a one-cut guy, he does have some moves to kind of get around defenders. Pretty slippery at times, but can also knock you over. And another running back in this class who's very versatile. He's a very good receiving back as well. And at the 208, who knows? That could even come up a little bit. I think it's definitely possible. Curious to see where he goes in a few weeks. Well, he's apparently not on NFL Mock Draft database either. Do I have to put his full name in again?
He's probably like a day 3 pick, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry.
In this deep of a running back class.
Yeah. Let's see.
I do like him as well.
Projected 4th round pick.
Hey, we'll take that.
Yeah, I'll take that. Do I have a... So let's kick it over now to the 209.
All right, at the 209, I'm surprised you haven't picked this guy up. People might be surprised he's not off the board yet. I had him as my wide receiver 5 a while back when we did our wide receiver rankings because I was excited to talk about him. It's Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Iowa State's bringing out some really good wide receivers this year. Jaden Higgins coming in at 6'4", 215. You see a big guy like that, and then he runs a 4.47, has a 39-inch vertical jump. I love to see the athleticism mixed with the size. You love to see that. And then you look and you see, hey, 87 catches, almost 1,200 yards last year, 9 touchdowns, had almost 1,000 yards the year before that, playing for Iowa State with another guy who's probably going to be a day 2 wide receiver. I love what Jaden Higgins can do as an outside receiver. Also, as a big slot receiver, I think he can definitely play as an X at the next level, but he could also be a big slot. I think he has some versatility between those two positions. And, him at the catch point, a good route runner that he is, though, there are some conversations being had about maybe he ran a couple specific routes very, very often and not many others. So that's going to be maybe a little bit of development at the next level. I don't know if Jaden Higgins is going to be the guy that comes in and makes a huge impact right away, but I think he's a guy that could make some noise a little bit and then develop over the first 2 or 3 years of his career, become a player that we're all going to be really excited about. So I think this is a really good spot for him. Here at the 209, you don't put too much into that investment and expect something right away, but you get a player that I think is going to develop into a pretty solid wide receiver at the next level and probably be a pretty good flex play for years to come.
All right, I like that. And he is currently a projected second-round pick on NFL Mock Draft Database.com. So at the 210, I have a guy that we talked about him on our Patreon. Again, you can come in there, get a week for free. Patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. We're going to be recording 2 pods after this. They're pretty quick. I don't want to say quick, but they're definitely not as long as our main pod. And that is Alec Ayomanor, who's a pretty big wide receiver. And this is another guy, I think you could kind of talk about him like Tet McMillan light, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Big frame, finds gaps in the defense, pretty explosive a lot of times after the catch as well. I love this guy, man. And if you want to see some great Alec Ayomanor film, check out his game against Colorado, which, if memory serves me correctly, was Stanford's biggest comeback ever. Please feel free to comment if I'm correct on that. I believe so. And I also believe that game ended at like 2 a.m. Eastern time. It was
I remember that game. I stayed up. I didn't actually watch that game. I was watching something else. I can't remember what it was. But I remember seeing that on Twitter as it happened and then switching over to see the aftermath as they won that game. That was wild.
Yeah, but he is currently a projected second-round pick on NFL Mock Draft Database.com. Couple spots for him: the Lions, the Bills, the Patriots. Patriots could use some help there. Why do they keep mocking the Eagles taking wide receivers? They're probably not going to do that. Definitely not in the second round, for sure. So, Nate, do you want to make your last pick for us? Thought you sniped me, but I actually was going to go in a different direction anyway.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, real quick. One thing on Ayomanor. Watching his film. Now, this is a nasty comp that is going. I don't want anyone to put these kind of expectations on Ayomanor.
No, you heard it here first.
It reminds me a little bit of Michael Thomas.
Okay.
Not the Cincinnati Bengals, Michael Thomas. The New Orleans Saints, Michael Thomas of 2019. The way that as a big guy that he can run a slant route and win those routes that are close to the line of scrimmage, that was very impressive by him. So I'm not the only one to have a little bit of an idea that he has a little bit of Michael Thomas to his game. We'll see how much that really translates to the next level. But there are definitely some teams that are excited about Ayomanor. And I think it's a guy that we could continue to see kind of have his stock boost as we get closer to the draft. And especially after the draft, if he comes in, in the second round and people are really starting to hear his name and see, his size and speed in his film. So good pick here, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. With the 211, last pick I have here in tonight's mock draft, I went with Bayshall Tootin out of Virginia Tech. Mike, I first heard of this guy thanks to you. So congrats to you. Flowers to you for finding this guy. Coming in at 5'9", 206. A little smaller, but he's got good size to him at 206. We're fine with that. But what really makes Tootin special is the fact that he ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. He has that 1.49 10-yard split like Matthew Golden had. Jumped over 40 inches in the vertical, almost 11 feet in the broad jump. I mean, this guy athletically was extremely impressive at the combine. You throw in the fact that he ran for over 100,000 yards last year, 15 touchdowns. You watch the film, you see the explosiveness, you see the versatility that he brings. He's had over 20 catches the last 3 years playing for Virginia Tech. So this is a guy that brings some versatility. I don't know if he's a day 2 pick. The athleticism certainly could help him get into day 3. A third round, but I think he's more of an early day 3 pick with some upside. Love to see what this guy could do in a committee. I think he could have some really high value touches. You get to the end of the second round, you kind of start finding guys that are your flavor, especially in a 1 quarterback draft. So, at this point, Mike, I was trying to snipe you a little bit. The guy that you picked here, maybe I should have picked, looking back in hindsight, over Tootin, but I'm excited for you to talk about him. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Bayshall Tootin, a projected 4th round draft pick. Right. And like you said, part of a committee, I think that's what he's going to have to be. Now, that being said, if he's the 1B in a committee, he has to step in for a game. I think he'd be a really solid flex play for you. Probably not going to get you like 20 points, but he'll get a few receptions. He'll get a decent amount of rushing yards for you. I like the guy. And check out his game versus Miami. I believe he went over for 200 all-purpose yards in that game.
I
But
believe Chris Sims has him as his RB4.
If you recall, a few years ago, Chris Sims also ranked Jalen Hurts as the 34th best quarterback in the NFL. So
Chris Sims also has RJ Harvey as his running back 3.
Yeah, I believe that Jalen Hurts has also appeared in more Super Bowls than Chris Sims won games as a starter in the NFL. For the record, I take everything he says with a grain of salt. Maybe he's just an Eagles hater. I don't know.
He's got some crazy takes, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, he seems like one of those guys who's sometimes hot takey just to be hot takey.
Absolutely.
You know, they say that bad publicity is better than none, but come on, man. Like, you were putting guys that...
Here I am talking about them.
But you weren't even... You were putting guys that weren't starting over starting quarter. Like, come on. But I'm closing this draft off with Jalen Knoll, wide receiver from Ohio State. Nate, you touched on it before. Ohio State's putting out some awesome wide receiver prospects. Jalen Knoll, he's one of them. Now, he's a little bit smaller than his teammate, but he is everything that we were kind of hoping Xavier Restrepo is going to be at the next level. Jalen Knoll is going to be that guy. And this isn't a huge knock on Xavier Restrepo. Restrepo's a little bit smaller, but he's very physical. Jalen Knoll is a physical guy, but he also gets open, and he is blazing fast when he has the ball in his hands. He's currently a projected 3rd-round pick on NFL Mock Draft database, and I think that would be a really good spot for him. Probably going to be a slot in the NFL. Mocked right now to the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Texans, the Seahawks. The Seahawks would be an interesting fit for him.
Yeah, a lot of slot receivers already.
Yeah,
with Cup and JSN. I think Knoll goes in the 2nd round, to be quite honest.
I could see it happening. With how explosive he is after the catch, I could definitely see it happening.
And the film looks good. And then the athleticism on top of it, very impressive.
Yeah. So I'll recap the 2nd round for you. Nate kicked it off with Travis Hunter, and I had Mason Taylor, Colson Loveland, Trey Harris, Cam Scatterbo, Isaiah Bond, Shador Sanders, DJ Giddens, Jaden Higgins, Alec Aomanor, Bashal Tootin, and Jalen Knoll rounding off the 2nd round. I want to say thank you to everybody who listens and watches this podcast. Really excited about the draft coming up in a few weeks. So if you are off at any point, maybe you took off for the draft, you want to have some time on the couch with some cold beverages, pour one out for me. But we'll be doing some live streams in the morning every day after that round. So we'll be doing one Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. Check it out. And hey, if you can't catch it live, it'll be on our YouTube page. So definitely come hang out with us. So until next time, everybody, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.